The night tore open like a wound. Wind whipped through the crumbling pillars of the old Roman marketplace, carrying the scent of smoke, wet stone, and fear. The world itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for another soul to be sold. Torches burned low, their flames trembling against walls stained with centuries of blood and sand. The air was thick, heavy, alive with the sound of chains clinking and whispered prayers swallowed by thunder. The crowd had gathered long before dusk, cloaked in greed and curiosity. They filled the ancient colonnades, their voices rising in cruel amusement, their eyes sharp as blades. They'd come to see broken wolves, omegas stripped of their pride, of their names, of their worth. And among them stood her, the girl the packs called cursed. The one they whispered about in shadows, but never dared to name. The rejected omega. Her wrists were bound with iron shackles that bit into her skin, raw and bleeding. Her silver hair clung to her face, tangled with dirt, rain, and a thin trace of blood that trailed from her temple to her jaw. She stood barefoot on the cold, cracked stones, trembling not from the chill, but from the weight of 1,000 eyes that saw her as nothing more than a thing. Every breath hurt. Every heartbeat reminded her she didn't belong to anyone, anywhere anymore. Above her, the storm began to speak, low rumbles that rolled across the sky like an ancient growl. Fat drops of rain fell, slow at first, then relentless. They soaked through her torn dress, plastering the thin fabric to her bruised skin. The rain washed away the dirt, the blood, and what little dignity she had left. The overseer raised his hand, his voice booming across the square. A rare offering tonight. The fireborn girl. The one who defied her alpha. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Her throat tightened. Fireborn. That word. That curse. She wanted to scream that it wasn't true. That she hadn't killed anyone, that she hadn't meant for her power to wake that night. But the truth wouldn't matter here. The truth never did. So she stayed silent. Head bowed. Heart steady. Waiting for it to be over. But inside, her wolf stirred, a faint, aching pulse deep in her chest, weak but alive. It clawed softly against the cage of her fear, whispering reminders of who she once was. Once, she had been loved. Once, she had been someone's daughter, someone's pack. Now she was property. The overseer grinned, enjoying the fear she didn't show. Cursed or not, she's strong. Her blood runs with the old power. Who'll start the bidding? The crowd erupted. Coins clinked. Voices shouted. Men raised hands. And in that chaos, she felt it, eyes on her. Not from the crowd. From somewhere beyond. Watching. Waiting. A chill ran down her spine. Then the first blow of thunder cracked overhead, loud enough to shake the columns. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, a sound that cut through the rain like grief itself. She flinched. Her heart kicked hard in her chest. Something shifted in the crowd. The smell of fear changed, sharper now, tinged with metal and blood. Then it happened, a scream, a scuffle, the sound of steel meeting flesh. A fight had broken out. Guards rushed forward. The crowd scattered. She didn't think. She ran. Her feet hit the wet stone hard, slipping once, twice, before she found her rhythm. The iron around her wrists clanged as she pushed through the chaos, weaving between toppled carts and fallen bodies. Someone shouted her name. Someone fired an arrow. It missed, barely. The rain turned violent, blinding, burning against her skin. Her lungs screamed for air, but she didn't stop. Couldn't. She burst through the outer gate, the world spinning around her in shades of black and silver. The old ruins of the Forum stretched before her, half swallowed by mist and vines. Broken statues watched her flee, ancient gods turned to silent witnesses of her misery. She stumbled through puddles, her breathing ragged. Pain flared with every step, but fear was stronger. Fear was a weapon, and tonight, it kept her alive. She collapsed beneath an archway, gasping, rainwater running down her face like tears she refused to shed. The marketplace behind her glowed faintly orange as fires spread from overturned torches. The cries of men and wolves echoed in the distance, fading under the relentless roar of the storm. She pressed her forehead against the cold stone and shut her eyes. It wasn't supposed to end like this. She had dreamt once of belonging, of shifting under the full moon beside her pack, of hearing the alpha's voice call her name with pride. But that dream had burned away the night her wolf revealed her truth. Silver flames. The mark of the fireborn. They had called her abomination. Monster. Omega. They had ripped her from her mother's arms, branded her and thrown her to the markets like an animal. Now she was here. Alone. Hunted. Forgotten. A flash of lightning lit the ruins, revealing the path ahead, shattered columns, wild grass, the broken face of an ancient statue staring up at the sky. For a heartbeat, she saw herself reflected in its eyes, cracked, defiant, unyielding. Her heart steadied. She clenched her fists, the chains biting deeper. The sting grounded her, reminded her she was still alive. Another flash, and this time, she saw movement in the storm. A figure. Tall. Still. Watching from the shadows. Her pulse spiked. Every instinct screamed run, but her body refused. There was something about the stillness of that figure, something that didn't feel like danger, and yet didn't feel safe either. The storm answered before she could. Thunder rolled, louder than before, and in that moment, the world felt alive, like it was holding its breath, waiting for something to break. Her breath hitched. The wolf inside her stirred again, harder now, as if recognizing something she couldn't see. Then it came. The faintest sound beneath the rain. A low, guttural growl that rose from the ruins behind her. She turned slowly, scanning the darkness. Nothing. Only the sound of the storm, the crackle of fire from the distant market, and her own heartbeat hammering in her ears. Then another growl, closer this time. And with it, a howl. Deep. Lonely. Mourning. The kind of sound that reaches into your soul and reminds you of everything you've lost. Her chest tightened. She closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she didn't feel entirely alone. The wind howled, tearing through her soaked hair. The rain blurred the edges of the world, but the sound of that distant howl wrapped around her like a promise. A promise that something was coming. Something ancient. Something that had been waiting for her all along. She opened her eyes again. The shadow was gone. The ruins were empty. But her wolf was awake now, restless, alert, whispering warnings and truths she wasn't ready to face. She pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the faint warmth beneath her skin where the brand had once burned. It pulsed softly, glowing through the rain. And in that instant, she knew this was no ordinary storm. This was the beginning of something far greater. The market's firelight flickered in the distance like dying stars, fading into the mist. Behind her, the world that had rejected her burned. Ahead, the unknown waited. Her breath steadied. Her eyes hardened. For the first time since her exile, she wasn't running from her fate. She was walking straight into it. And somewhere, beyond the thunder, a second howl joined the first, low, powerful, and impossibly close. It wasn't an echo. It was an answer. If stories like this awaken something deep in you, subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections, where love is tested and destiny never breaks. Rain drummed against the ruins like the heartbeat of an angry god. Each drop struck stone and flesh with the same relentless rhythm, drowning out everything except the sound of her own breathing, fast, shallow, uneven. The storm wrapped around her like a living thing, whispering warnings she couldn't quite understand. And through that endless gray, she saw him. A shadow at first. Nothing more than a silhouette carved out of night and rain. Then movement. Slow, deliberate, unhurried, as though the chaos of the world dared not touch him. He stepped out from the mist, his cloak soaked through and clinging to his shoulders. Beneath the hood, a faint glow pulsed, eyes that shimmered gold even in the storm's darkness. She froze. Every instinct screamed danger. Her wolf tensed inside her chest, ears flat, ready to strike or flee. But the man didn't come closer. Not yet. He stood there, rain sliding down his jaw, shoulders squared, unbothered by the cold. The world around him seemed to bend, just slightly, as if his very presence commanded the air itself to obey. Her pulse quickened. She'd heard stories, half-mad whispers traded in the marketplace and prisons, about the Alpha King's son, the silent heir, the mute prince who bore no voice, only the will of the goddess carved in silence. A boy cursed at birth, doomed to rule without words. And now he stood before her. He raised one gloved hand, palm outward. Not a threat. Not a demand. A quiet command for stillness. Her breath caught somewhere between defiance and disbelief. No words. Just rain. Then his hands moved. Fluid, graceful language without sound. For a heartbeat, she didn't understand. Then memory hit, faint lessons from her mother, half-forgotten signs taught by candlelight in gentler days. Words made by movement, not voice. You're hurt. Her throat tightened. She blinked the rain from her lashes, studying him, unsure if she'd read it right. His expression didn't change, but his eyes, they held something she hadn't seen in years. Not pity. Recognition. When he stepped closer, she stepped back, chains clinking against her wrists. Don't, she rasped, her voice low, hoarse from disuse. He didn't stop. He just tilted his head, that same quiet patience in every line of his body. Then, slower this time, he signed again. Safe. Safe. The word hit harder than it should have. She didn't believe it, couldn't, but the way he stood there, unmoving, waiting, made her chest ache. The rain gathered in his hair, sliding down the sharp angle of his cheekbones. He reached up, pulled back his hood, and for the first time, she saw his face. The stories hadn't done him justice. He wasn't beautiful in the way of carved statues or royal portraits. His beauty was harsher, forged by battles fought in silence. A faint scar curved along his jaw, disappearing beneath the edge of his collar. His lips were pale, pressed together in the quiet discipline of someone who'd learned to survive by stillness alone. He watched her the way predators watch the edge of a forest, calculating, unreadable, yet oddly gentle. The firelight from the burning marketplace flickered against him, painting gold across his soaked cloak. He moved again, slow, deliberate. His hand lifted toward her, fingers brushing the air between them. Every muscle in her body tensed. And yet, she didn't pull away. When his gloved fingers reached her face, he hesitated, a moment's pause that spoke volumes. Then, with infinite care, he wiped a smear of blood from her temple. His thumb lingered a heartbeat too long at her pulse, where her skin throbbed under his touch. Her breath faltered. He looked at her then, not at her scars, not at the chains, but straight into her. As though the storm itself had quieted just to make room for that moment. Something inside her cracked. For years, no one had looked at her like that. Like she wasn't broken. Like she wasn't cursed. He exhaled softly, eyes flicking to her wrists, then back to her face. His hands spoke again. Who did this? She almost laughed. The sound came out broken, bitter. Everyone. He didn't react. Didn't pity. Just looked at her as if trying to understand the pieces of her story the world had buried. Then, the faintest shift in his jaw, a sign of anger held tightly in check. He gestured again. You can't stay here. Her brow furrowed. You think I don't know that? But he didn't flinch at her tone. He didn't even blink. Instead, he took one step closer, until the scent of rain and wolf and something darker wrapped around her. It was warmth and danger and command, all tangled together. She took a shaky breath. Why are you here? He didn't answer. Just reached out his hand, palm up, waiting. Lightning split the sky. For a heartbeat, the ruins were drenched in white light, and in that flash, she saw them, torches. Far behind her. The guards. The hunters. The ones who dragged her across the stones hours ago. They were coming back. Panic flared. Her wolf surged, wild and trapped. She turned to run, but his hand shot out, catching her arm. Not rough. Not forceful. Just enough to stop her. His touch burned through the cold. He looked at her again, eyes fierce, urgent. With me, his hand said. No, her voice trembled, but the word came sharp. You don't understand. If they see you. He cut her off, shaking his head. Now. Another flash. Another roll of thunder. And then movement. The glow of firelight reflecting off armor. The guards were closer. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to shift, to do something. But before she could move, the silent alpha stepped between her and the light. His body shielded hers completely, his broad shoulders absorbing the storm like it was nothing. He didn't make a sound. Didn't flinch when a spear of lightning struck the column beside them, spraying shards of stone. Didn't move when the guards' voices echoed through the ruins. He just stood there, still as carved granite. One arm slightly behind him, keeping her close but hidden. For the first time in years, someone stood in front of her instead of turning away. And that broke something open inside her chest. She didn't know his name. Didn't owe him anything. And yet, a strange calm spread through her veins. The chaos of her heartbeat began to slow. The panic receded just enough for her to breathe again. He turned his head slightly, eyes catching the flicker of torchlight. His hands moved once more, quick and quiet. "Trust me." The words hit harder than any command. Her throat worked. The chains clinked as she nodded, a tiny motion, barely visible. Without another word, he slipped his cloak from his shoulders and draped it around her. It was heavy, warm, and smelled faintly of pine, leather, and rain. The fabric swallowed her, hiding the marks on her arms, the dirt, the fear. Then he moved, fluid and purposeful. He guided her through the ruins, keeping to the shadows, every step perfectly measured. He didn't speak, didn't need to. She followed his gestures, the tilt of his head, the way his body moved like part of the storm itself. Behind them, voices shouted. The guards searched. Her pulse raced, but he didn't falter. When she stumbled, his hand steadied her. When the wind howled, his body angled to shield her from it. He didn't look back once. They reached the edge of the ruins, where the forest began, black trees swaying under the storm's breath. He paused, scanning the distance. Then, with a subtle nod, he led her into the trees. Branches scraped her arms, mud swallowed her feet, but she didn't stop. The sound of pursuit faded slowly behind them, swallowed by the forest's roar. Only when the glow of torches vanished entirely did he slow. They stopped in a clearing where the rain softened to mist, the canopy breaking the storm's rage. For the first time, she saw him clearly. The golden shimmer in his eyes wasn't just reflection. It came from within, faintly glowing in the dark. A mark of the royal bloodline. Her breath trembled. "You really are him." He tilted his head, studying her face. Then his hand lifted again, fingers spelling his answer. "Names don't matter here." Her heart tightened. "Then why help me?" He hesitated. Rain dripped from his jaw. He looked past her, as if searching for words that didn't exist, then signed slowly. "Because you looked at the storm and didn't bow to it." She didn't know what to say. The air between them felt charged, thick with unspoken things. Lightning flickered beyond the trees, painting them both in silver. For the first time, she noticed how close he stood, how the heat of his body seeped through the cold air. She met his eyes. "You don't even know me." His gaze softened. "I know pain." And just like that, something fragile broke inside her. She wanted to turn away, to keep her guard high, to remind herself that alphas were the reason she'd been destroyed. But his eyes held none of the arrogance she remembered. They were quiet, tired, understanding. He reached out, not to touch, but to show her his hands. Faint scars traced across his knuckles, old, healed, earned. Then he signed, slower this time, as though each word cost him something. "I've been silent too long, but I see you." The forest around them seemed to still. Even the rain slowed, becoming a gentle whisper. For the first time in years, she felt seen. Not as a curse, not as a weapon, but as someone real. He glanced back toward the direction they'd come, then to her again. "It's not safe here. We move before dawn." She nodded, though her voice barely worked. "Where?" "Somewhere they can't find you." Her chest ached with questions she couldn't form. She wanted to trust him, and that terrified her. The silence between them wasn't empty, it was heavy with meaning. Every breath, every glance carried more weight than words ever could. He turned to go, gesturing for her to follow. She hesitated for a single heartbeat, looking back through the trees toward the ruins, the life she'd lost, the pain she'd carried. Then she took a step forward. And the moment she did, something inside her shifted. The bond between them, faint, uncertain, but undeniably real, began to hum beneath her skin. The rain eased into a soft drizzle. The forest sighed. And in the distance, the wolves began to howl again, not in grief this time, but in warning. Whatever storm had begun tonight was far from over. But for the first time, she wasn't facing it alone. The storm had moved on, but the ruins still breathed its remnants, cold mist curling around the edges of broken stone, rain dripping in a steady rhythm from shattered archways. The silence that followed was deafening. She sat beneath the remains of an ancient column, knees drawn close, the Alpha's cloak heavy across her shoulders. The scent of him clung to it, pine, smoke, rain, and something distinctly wolf. He crouched a few paces away, every movement quiet, measured. His eyes tracked the tree lean, then her. He didn't need words to fill the air between them. His presence alone spoke a language older than speech. The weight of who he was, the stories, the power, the mystery, pressed against her chest like gravity itself. She couldn't look at him for long. Every time she did, her own reflection seemed to flicker in those golden irises, fragile, fractured, yet still burning. When she closed her eyes, memories clawed through the darkness. A courtyard bathed in silver light. Dozens of eyes watching her, judging. Her body trembling as the first shift took hold, bones stretching, for tearing through skin, agony and beauty merging into one impossible moment. Then gasps. A single cry, silver. The fire that erupted from her fur had not been light. It had been flame. Living, pulsing flame that devoured the grass, turned stone to smoke, left even her father backing away. The elders called her wolf a blasphemy. The fireborn curse, reborn in the flesh of a beta's daughter. A mistake that shouldn't have existed. Her father had pleaded for mercy, but mercy had a price. They took her mark, burned it from her skin. Her wolf screamed, trapped behind the pain, and when the moon rose red that night, she stopped feeling altogether. Now, huddled beneath a ruin centuries older than her suffering, she pressed a trembling hand to the scar still etched on her neck, a mark where her pack's sigil had once been. The Alpha's eyes followed the movement, sharp with recognition. He lifted a hand, slowly, deliberately. The question formed between his fingers, clear even through the haze of her tears. Who did this? She tried to speak, but her throat felt scraped raw. My own. His gaze darkened. A silent fury rippled beneath his composure, a kind of restrained violence that lived behind his quiet exterior. He didn't move, didn't react outwardly, but the air thickened around him. The bond between silence and power had a pulse of its own. He turned away, pulling a small pouch from his cloak. Inside were pieces of dried meat, wrapped herbs, a bit of bread. He pushed them toward her with a simple gesture. Eat. She hesitated. Hunger battled pride in her chest. She had starved before. She knew the taste of dirt, the ache of hollow ribs. But to accept food from an alpha, especially him, felt dangerous. Still, her body betrayed her. She took it, hands shaking. When she ate, he didn't watch her like a savior or a captor. He just waited. Silent, steady, unyielding. When she finished, he reached for the dirt beside them. With the tip of his finger, he carved one word into the wet earth. Why? Her breath stilled. Why had she been branded? Why did she run? Why did she survive when everything else burned? She lifted her gaze to him. His expression was calm, but his eyes demanded truth. Her voice came out quiet, but each word cut deeper than the last. Because I was born wrong. He stilled, his hands falling open in disbelief. Then slowly, deliberately, he shook his head. Not in pity. In refusal. The gesture was so firm, so certain, it cracked something inside her. Her jaw tightened. You don't understand, she whispered, though her words trembled. My wolf, she's not like yours. They said she was cursed. That the moon rejected her. The night I shifted, I burned everything I loved. The Alpha didn't move for a long time. The firelight from the small ember between them painted gold across his features, highlighting the tension carved into his jaw. Then, with quiet purpose, he leaned forward and drew another word in the dirt beneath Y. No. Her brow furrowed. No. He met her eyes. The next sign came slow, deliberate, almost reverent. Gift. The word stole her breath. Her first instinct was to laugh, but the sound caught, brittle and hollow. A gift, she echoed, bitterness curling beneath the word. A gift doesn't destroy a pack. He didn't waver. His hands moved again, more forceful this time, shaping words from silence. Not gift misused. Gift unprotected. The world tilted for a moment. His words, or his signs, did something strange to her. They didn't erase her pain, but they shifted its shape. Unprotected, she repeated, her voice distant. No one's ever said that before. He nodded once, eyes holding hers with unflinching intensity. She wanted to look away, but couldn't. It felt as though he could see everything, every scar, every buried memory, every moment she'd chosen survival over hope. She hated that. She needed the armor. Needed the numbness. But he looked at her like he saw through all of it. She stood abruptly, the cloak slipping from her shoulders. Don't do that. He frowned. Don't look at me like I'm worth saving, she said, voice shaking. You don't know what I am. He rose too, fluid, tall, commanding. The movement didn't threaten, it demanded truth. The air between them tightened. His hands moved once more. I see enough. Her pulse stuttered. Enough to what? Pity me? Never pity. Then what? He hesitated, as though the next word cost him something sacred. Understand. The soundless declaration tore through her like wind through broken glass. No one had ever tried to understand her. Not her father. Not her pack. Not even herself. She wanted to hate him for saying it, but instead, something deep within her wolf stirred. A low hum in her chest, not quite growl, not quite sigh. The air thickened between them again, charged with something she couldn't name. The rain had stopped entirely now. Mist coiled through the ruins, brushing against their skin like cold breath. She stared at him, unable to move. His cloak hung heavy across his shoulders, still dripping rainwater. A faint scar crossed his throat, long, jagged, pale. She wondered if that was where his voice had been taken. Does it hurt? She asked before she could stop herself. He tilted his head. Not speaking, she said softly. Does it still hurt? He didn't answer with signs this time. Instead, he reached for her hand. Slowly, carefully. When she didn't pull away, he placed her palm flat against his throat. Beneath her touch, his pulse beat steady. Warm. Alive. But when she focused, she felt it, the scar tissue beneath the skin, rough and uneven, the echo of a wound that should have killed him. Her breath caught. He met her gaze. Then, in the faintest whisper of movement, he shaped the sign against her wrist. Not anymore. Her throat tightened. She withdrew her hand, though part of her didn't want to. Who did this to you? He didn't answer. Not at first. Then, slowly, he drew a small mark in the dirt, a crescent with a single line cutting through it. The royal crest. His own. Her stomach turned. Your own people? He looked away. Rain began again, soft, relentless. And suddenly, she understood more than he would ever say. They were both outcasts. Both cursed in their own ways. Both marked by the goddess for something beyond their control. She sank to the ground again, exhaustion bleeding into her bones. The Alpha stayed where he was, silent, standing guard. The forest whispered around them, branches swaying, wolves howling somewhere distant. After a while, she spoke again, her voice barely more than breath. They said the Fireborn bloodline was wiped out centuries ago. He glanced at her. They said we were monsters. He crouched beside her, fingers brushing through the dirt again. This time, he wrote carefully, slowly, each letter clear. Monsters don't save others. Her eyes burned. She wanted to argue, to deny it, but no words came. Instead, silence stretched thick, heavy, sacred. The Alpha broke it first, lifting his gaze toward the horizon where the first trace of dawn bled through the mist. The light touched his face, and for a heartbeat, she saw him not as the son of a king, but as a man burdened by a world that misunderstood him. He reached into his cloak again, pulling free a strip of leather. He offered it to her. "What's this?" He signed, "Mark of Passage." "Not a chain." She stared at it, then at him. "Why give it to me?" His hands moved slower this time. Because the world already took too much. Her chest ached. She didn't want to feel this. Didn't want the flicker of warmth, the dangerous hope. But when she met his gaze, she couldn't stop it. He turned away first, scanning the forest edge as if listening to something she couldn't hear. His entire posture shifted, alert, protective. "What is it?" she whispered. He signed, "They're close." Her pulse jumped. Without hesitation, he grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the deeper woods. His grip was firm, unyielding, but never cruel. The leather strap he'd given her brushed against her palm as they ran. Branches tore at their clothes, roots grabbed at their feet, but he didn't slow. His wolf stirred behind his eyes, flashes of gold flickering like firelight. When they finally stopped, they were deep within the heart of the forest, where the air smelled of moss and wild rain. He turned to her, chest rising and falling. She waited for him to speak, to sign, but instead, he simply looked at her. Long and tense. She realized then what the silence truly was. It wasn't absence. It was presence. It was trust. It was the kind of quiet that said everything words couldn't. For the first time, she didn't feel like prey. She felt seen. Chosen. And deep inside her, the silver flame flickered to life again, not in destruction, but in recognition. The fireborn curse had always been a story told by those who feared what they couldn't control. But looking into his eyes, she understood. It wasn't a curse. It was power waiting to be believed in. And maybe, just maybe, he was the one the moon had sent to remind her of that truth. The forest swallowed sound the deeper they went. Every step pressed through layers of ancient leaves and damp earth, every breath thick with the scent of pine and storm. The air trembled, alive with something that didn't belong to this age, something older than kings, older than packs, older than the idea of loyalty itself. She followed him through the fog, her pulse matching the rhythm of his stride. The alpha's silence wasn't absence, it was intent. Every turn of his head, every gesture of his hand carried meaning. The way he moved through the woods, cautious, reverent, made her realize he wasn't just leading her somewhere. He was leading her back to something. When the trees finally opened, the clearing appeared like a wound in the heart of the forest. Massive stones circled the open space, their surfaces etched with markings so faint they could have been mistaken for cracks until lightning rolled across the sky. Then, the carvings glowed, veins of pale silver running through the rock like living light. The air buzzed. She felt it before she could name it, a hum beneath her skin, a rhythm syncing with her heartbeat. He stopped at the edge of the circle, his cloak brushing the ground. She could feel his hesitation, not of fear, but of reverence. The alpha knelt, rain pooling around him. His fingers traced one of the carved symbols, slow, deliberate. When he looked back at her, his eyes caught the light of the storm, molten gold, sharp as truth. His hands rose, shaping words in silence. Child of the flame. Her breath broke. No, she took a step back, shaking her head. No, that name is dead. It died with my ancestors. But the earth disagreed. The moment she spoke the denial, the markings beneath her feet pulsed once, a heartbeat, not of stone, but of something living. The hum deepened. The air thickened. Stop, she whispered, though her own voice sounded distant. We shouldn't be here. He stayed kneeling, unflinching. Rain slid down his face, catching on his lashes. His silence said everything. When her hand brushed the nearest stone, the world shifted. The ground exhaled. A low vibration rippled outward from her touch, spreading through the circle until every rune burned silver white. The light climbed her arm, wrapping her wrist, her shoulder, her throat. It didn't burn, it awakened. The sensation was raw and electric, like memory flooding through bone. He rose then, slow and steady, the light reflecting in his eyes. She felt his presence before she saw him move closer, until his shadow joined hers against the blinding glow. His hand lifted, hesitant, trembling, before signing just 2 words. "It's you." She wanted to deny it again, but the world around them had already chosen. The symbols pulsed with every beat of her heart, syncing perfectly, as though the earth itself recognized her. A voice, soft as breath, whispered in her mind, a voice she hadn't heard since childhood. "Daughter of the Fireborn, keeper of the silver flame." Her knees almost buckled. No, it can't be. The Alpha didn't move closer, yet somehow she felt his steadiness reach her. That strange tether between them, fragile, wordless, held her upright when her own belief began to crumble. Then memory flooded in. Stories her mother once whispered before the elders forbade such things. Tales of a prophecy buried in secrecy. When the silent moon finds the Fireborn, peace or ruin shall awaken. One will rise. The other will fall. The moon. The flame. Her chest constricted. The Alpha King's son, the mute one, the cursed one, bore the silence of the moon itself. She bore the fire. The pattern was too perfect, too cruel to ignore. "You shouldn't be near me," she whispered, stepping back until her heel hit stone. "If what they said is true, I bring destruction." He followed her retreat, each step deliberate, his eyes unwavering. Then, he lifted his hands again. Or rebirth. 2 words. 1 truth. The glow around them flared, almost in response. The rain didn't fall anymore. It hissed where it touched the light, turning to mist before it reached them. Her wolf stirred, restless, pacing within her chest. It hadn't moved this way in years, not since the night she was branded. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. He extended his hand toward her, open, patient. She hesitated, staring at the scar across his throat. The mark of silence. He'd carried it like a burden, but now she saw it differently. It wasn't weakness. It was sacrifice. "What if this is a trap?" she whispered. "What if the prophecy only exists to end us both?" He didn't answer with words. He simply stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body through the cold. The tension in the air was magnetic, not lust, not safety, something deeper. It was connection forged in scars. His fingers brushed hers, tentative at first, then steady. The instant contact sparked through both of them. The markings around the circle blazed brighter, threads of energy twisting upward, spiraling into the storm. The earth shuddered. The light reached the sky. She gasped, the sound swallowed by thunder. Visions tore through her mind, flashes of fire, wolves kneeling beneath a blood moon, the soundless cry of a child born from both silence and flame. Her pulse thundered. She saw armies rising, empires burning, then healing, as if destruction and salvation shared the same breath. When it ended, she was on her knees, trembling, her skin still glowing faintly. He caught her before she fell. His arms around her felt steady, grounding, almost too gentle for someone who carried alpha blood. She wanted to pull away, to guard herself, but his scent, that blend of pine, ash, and something wild, drew her closer instead. "What did you see?" she whispered. He met her gaze, his expression torn between fear and awe. Then he signed slowly, "The moon found you." Her heart hammered. "And you?" His response was just one sign. "Bound." The meaning hit her like a blade, not in bondage, but in fate. Bound to her. To what she was. To what she would become. "No," she breathed. "No, I can't let that happen. You don't understand." The last Fireborn destroyed her mate. She couldn't control it. The prophecy. He stopped her, signing sharply, "I am not afraid." Her words died. He stepped closer, inches between them now. His presence burned and soothed all at once. She could feel his heartbeat through his chest, steady and deliberate, grounding her against the chaos swirling in her veins. "You should be," she whispered. "You should be afraid of me." He touched his throat, then his heart. "I know fear. I choose you anyway." The confession didn't sound like one, but it felt like the first truth either of them had spoken aloud, even if his voice never made a sound. Her vision blurred. "Why?" He hesitated, then wrote it with his finger on her palm, slow, steady strokes she felt more than saw. Because I was born to find you. Her breath caught. The wind shifted. The storm quieted, as if the forest itself leaned in to listen. For a long time, they just stood there, two souls marked by the goddess, caught between prophecy and choice. Then, a distant sound cracked the stillness, a howl, sharp and commanding, echoing from far beyond the forest. His posture stiffened instantly. The sound wasn't random. It was a call. She recognized the tone. Royal, commanding, the kind used to summon alphas to council. They're looking for you, she murmured. He didn't deny it. His eyes softened, regret flickering beneath the gold. They can't know you're here. And if they do, they'll call you a weapon. Or a curse. She laughed bitterly. They wouldn't be wrong. His expression hardened. He took her hand again, pressing it against his chest. The gesture was firm, desperate, almost defiant. His heartbeat drummed beneath her palm, alive, fierce, unbroken. They don't decide what you are, his fingers signed against her skin. Something inside her shifted. A lifetime of guilt loosened its hold, if only for a heartbeat. The howls grew nearer. The air tightened with danger. He released her hand and scanned the treeline. What do we do? She asked, already knowing his answer. We run. But before they moved, the stones pulsed again, brighter this time, the light twisting into symbols neither of them had seen before. She turned toward them, her breath catching as one marking flared above the rest, a spiral of flame interlocked with a crescent moon. The prophecy, carved into the earth long before either of them were born. The alpha stared at it, his jaw set. It's starting, he signed. She swallowed hard. What is? His eyes darkened, and the light flickered across his face like fire dancing on water. The choosing. The word sank into her like ice. Choosing. He nodded once. Every generation, the goddess tests the balance. Fire or silence. Life or ruin. Only one survives. Her breath left her. The realization hit with brutal clarity. One of us has to die. The air trembled around them, charged with prophecy and fear. Yet when she looked at him, truly looked, she saw no dread. Only resolve. He took a step closer, reins sliding down his face. Then another. Until they were close enough to share breath. Not if we rewrite it, he signed. The thought felt impossible, but his eyes carried conviction fierce enough to challenge the heavens. And somehow, for the first time, she believed it. The storm broke again overhead, washing the circle in rain and light. The symbols dimmed, fading back into stone. But the echo of what had awakened lingered in the air, in their blood, in the pull between their souls. She looked down at her arm. The silver flame still shimmered faintly beneath her skin, threading toward her heart. He watched her quietly, then reached out, tracing the glow with his fingertip. The touch was gentle, reverent, as though he wasn't touching power, but a promise. She exhaled. The sound trembled. The prophecy had awakened, yes. But so had something else, something more fragile, more dangerous. Hope. And in a world built on fear, that might be the most powerful thing of all. The storm that had chased them through the night has bled into morning, painting the sky in bruised shades of crimson and ash. Smoke curls from the wreckage of what once was the ancient stone circle, now nothing more than fractured monuments to a history neither of them fully understands. The scent of blood and burned earth clings to the air, heavy enough to choke. Yet beneath that ruin, beneath the terror, something sacred has awakened, a truth the world has long denied. She stands in the midst of it all, her chest heaving, her silver hair plastered to her face, her hands still smoldering faintly with the fire that refuses to sleep. The memory of screams echoes in her ears, those who dared to raise their weapons now silent. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. She never wanted death. Only freedom. But freedom, in her cursed bloodline, never comes without fire. He's kneeling beside her, his body half broken, chest rising and falling in shallow, deliberate breaths. The mute alpha, the one they said was too broken to lead, looks up at her as if she's the very storm that the moon goddess once feared. His golden eyes hold no judgment, no fear. Only fierce, unyielding calm. His fingers twitch, trembling as he lifts his hands, tracing invisible words in the smoke between them. "You're not a curse." Her throat tightens. She wants to believe him. Every part of her does. But the world beyond these flames says otherwise. She turns, scanning the horizon, soldiers regrouping, shadows gathering, the iron banners of the Alpha Council cutting through the dawn. The echo of a horn splits the silence. Reinforcements. More than she can count. Her heart stutters. "They'll kill you for this," she says, voice trembling. "They'll call it treason." He shakes his head slowly, signing again with movements sharper now, desperate. "I decide what's worth dying for." A blade of emotion slices through her chest. He's a prince, bound by duty, raised by laws older than mercy. Yet here he is choosing her. The fireborn. The outcast. The rejected Omega who once prayed for death to come quietly in her sleep. He stands, swaying slightly, blood dripping from a wound near his ribs. When she reaches for him, he catches her wrist, not to stop her, but to anchor himself. His skin burns against hers, warmth meeting warmth. The bond between them hums, fragile but alive. Then the first arrow flies. It whistles through the air, slicing past her shoulder and burying itself into a shattered pillar. The world shatters into motion. Soldiers pour in, their armor gleaming like serpent scales, their eyes filled with divine hatred. He pulls her behind a crumbling archway, his breath harsh and shallow. She sees the flicker of strategy in his eyes. He's already counting exits, weighing lives. But there's nowhere left to run. The ruins have become a cage. She whispers, "I'll fight." "You go." His jaw tightens, the ghost of a snarl rising before he crushes it down. His hands move fast, urgent. No one fights alone. The ground trembles. Her wolf stirs inside her chest, howling against the walls of fear she's built for so long. She's tried to cage it, to deny what she is, but in his presence, it's impossible. The fire inside her stirs again, hungry, furious, alive. The soldiers advance. He moves first. Silent but lethal, his motions are pure instinct, his body flowing like water, strength and precision honed from years of restraint. Every strike he lands feels like a vow, a promise that he will not lose her. She mirrors him without thought, her hands aflame, her wolf roaring through her veins. Their fight is not graceful, it's desperate. It's love clawing against extinction. A soldier lunges toward her with a silver blade. She blocks it with her bare arm, the metal searing her skin, yet her power surges through the pain. Silver flames erupt, devouring the man whole. She stumbles, trembling, but he's there again, steadying her before she falls. His hand finds her waist, his breath brushing her temple, just enough to remind her she's not alone. But every victory costs. Every heartbeat burns faster. A horn sounds again, deeper this time, ancient. The sound of the Council's alpha hunters. Her stomach turns. These are not ordinary soldiers. These are the ones who hunt monsters. The ones who killed her mother. She grips his arm. "We can't win this." He meets her eyes. For the first time, she sees fear flicker there, not for himself, but for her. His fingers trace quick symbols against her wrist. "Trust me." Then he howls. The sound tears through the forest, low and haunting. It's not just a call, it's a command. The ground shudders as shadows move in answer. Wolves. His pack. Dozens of them, emerging from the mist. They surround the ruins, their eyes reflecting his golden light. The soldiers hesitate. Fear ripples through their formation. He turns back to her, signs one word, "Run." She shakes her head, refusing, but he grips her hand and pulls her toward the broken archway. The wolves close in, a living wall of fur and fangs. The fight explodes again, chaos and sound, blood and fire colliding beneath the rising sun. She can't breathe, can't think, only move. Every step feels heavier. The air thickens with the scent of iron and ash. Her wolf claws at her skin, begging to be released fully. She resists, not here, not now, but when she sees him fall to his knees, struck by a silver-tipped spear, her control snaps. The world turns white. Flames burst from her body, spiraling upward like living serpents of light. The hunters scream, their armor melting as her power devours everything it touches. Her wolf's roar echoes across the valley, a sound older than time itself. The bond between her and the mute alpha pulses brighter than the dawn. When the fire fades, silence claims the battlefield. Bodies lie scattered. Smoke curls upward, forming shapes that vanish before her eyes. She drops to her knees beside him, shaking. His breathing is shallow, his lips pale. "No," she whispers, pressing her hands to his wound. "Stay with me, please." His eyelids flutter. Slowly, his fingers rise again. Weak, trembling. He signs with effort, one motion at a time. "You saved me." Tears blur her vision. "No," she breathes, voice breaking. "You saved me first." For a long moment, neither moves. The storm around them quiets, the forest holding its breath. The pack emerges from the shadows, heads bowed, waiting. They don't speak. They don't dare. They only watch their prince and the fire-born girl locked in the stillness of something greater than war. He opens his eyes fully, and in them she sees no pain. Only peace. He signs again, faintly. "They'll come for us again." She nods. "Then let them." Her voice no longer shakes. Her fire no longer hides. She rises, helping him to his feet, her hand steady around his. The ruins behind them burn like a pyre to the past. Ahead lies the forest, dark, unknown, and alive with whispers of destiny. Together, they step forward. He limps, but she doesn't let go. The bond between them thrums with something deeper than words, something ancient and unstoppable. The prophecy breathes through the air around them. When the silent moon finds the fireborn, peace or ruin shall awaken. And as the last flames die behind them, she realizes the truth. They are both. They are peace. They are ruin. They are the beginning of everything the world feared and everything it needs. The sky splits with light once more, and somewhere in the distance, the moon goddess watches, waiting. The cave is quiet except for the slow rhythm of their breathing and the distant echo of rain whispering through the cracks above. Moonlight seeps through the jagged edges of the rock, painting silver shapes across the walls. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something raw, alive, electric. Her pulse hasn't steadied since the battle. Her skin still hums with the ghost of fire, the memory of his hand gripping hers through the chaos. Now there's only stillness. And him. He sits a few feet away, his back to the stone, his head bowed slightly as he works on binding the cut along his forearm. His movements are careful, practiced. Every gesture seems to mean something beyond survival, like each touch of the cloth, each pull of the knot, carries the weight of unspoken thoughts. When he looks up, his golden eyes catch the light. They always do, reflecting back the faint glow of the moon, fierce and calm all at once. He doesn't need words, he never has. She's beginning to understand that his silence isn't empty. It's full. Full of everything he chooses not to say because the world rarely deserves to hear it. She watches the way his jaw tightens when he moves, the wince he hides when the cloth brushes too close to the wound. He pretends not to notice her gaze, but his eyes flick toward her once, then again. He signs a short word, "Sit." She hesitates, unsure whether it's an order or an invitation. But something in his expression, gentle, patient, pulls her closer. She lowers herself beside him, the warmth of his body radiating through the chill. The cave feels smaller now, filled by the quiet tension between them. He reaches for her arm. She flinches instinctively. He freezes, hands suspended midair, waiting. Not forcing, just waiting. She exhales, slow and shaky, and nods. His touch is steady as he cleans the shallow cuts along her forearm, fingers tracing the burned edges of her skin. The contact sends a rush through her, an ache she can't name. He's close enough for her to feel the tremor in his breath, close enough that the faint scent of pine and steel clings to her senses. Her voice is barely a whisper. "You shouldn't be doing this. If they find out you helped me, your council will call you traitor." He doesn't look up. His hands never falter. He finishes the bandage, ties it neatly, and then signs, "Let them call me what they want." His defiance cuts through her. Not because it's loud, but because it's quiet. Because he means it. Because every sign, every movement, carries truth. She doesn't understand him, this man who's supposed to be a prince, a soldier, a leader of wolves, but who chooses to be here instead, in a damp cave with a girl who carries death in her veins. He reaches into the small pouch tied to his belt and pulls out a pendant, a small crest carved from obsidian, the mark of the royal line. The chain glints faintly in the dim light. Without hesitation, he places it in her hand. Her fingers curl around the cold metal. "What are you doing?" His answer comes in slow, deliberate gestures. It means trust. The words cut deeper than any wound. She stares down at the pendant, at the symbol she once saw etched on banners raised above battlefields, carried by armies who hunted her kind. To have it now, placed in her hand by the Alpha's son himself, it feels impossible. Her throat tightens. "You shouldn't trust me." He tilts his head, his eyes narrowing slightly, a question forming without words. She exhales, trembling. "Because I'm not safe. Not for you. Not for anyone." He studies her for a long moment. Then, slow as the tide, he raises his hands again. "Then I'll learn how to be safe with you." She looks away, because the honesty in his eyes is too much. It's too human. Too real. The silence stretches between them, and she fills it with confession, because the weight inside her can't stay buried anymore. "There was a night," she says softly. "The moon was crimson, the air so still I could hear my heartbeat echo. I thought that if I stopped breathing, maybe the world would stop hating me too." Her voice trembles. She doesn't look at him. "I walked to the cliffs outside the pack's border. The wind was cold enough to feel like punishment. I thought if I jumped, it would end quietly. But my wolf wouldn't let me. She pulled back. She fought me. She howled until the world woke. Her hands shake. I hated her for it. I hated being saved." He doesn't move. He doesn't try to comfort her with touch or pity. He just listens. Truly listens. The kind of listening that doesn't demand, doesn't judge, just exists. Then, when the silence becomes too heavy to bear, he reaches out. Slowly, gently. He takes her hand in his and presses her fingers to his heartbeat. The steady rhythm fills the space between them, grounding her. He signs with his free hand, "You're still here." That's what matters. Tears burn at the back of her eyes. "You don't even know me." He signs again, "I don't need to." The simplicity of it disarms her completely. She feels the walls she built, stone by stone, over years of rejection and pain, beginning to crack. His hand stays in hers, warm and solid. Her wolf hums beneath her skin, restless, sensing the bond forming faster than her mind can process. When she looks up, his gaze meets hers, and the space between them feels charged like the air before lightning strikes. Her heartbeat quickens. She can see every detail of him now, the faint scar running along his jaw, the burn mark on his collarbone, the small notch missing from his ear. He's been through wars, both outside and within. And yet, there's gentleness in him, the kind that shouldn't exist in a world built on dominance and power. He leans closer, just enough that she feels his breath brush against her cheek. His eyes search hers, not demanding, not asking, just waiting. Her pulse stumbles. She whispers, "I can't." For a moment, silence stretches so thin it hurts. Then his mouth curves, just barely, into a smile that feels like sunrise after endless night. He signs, slow enough for her to read every motion. "You already did." Something inside her unravels completely. The cave feels smaller now, the air heavier, the pull between them impossible to ignore. Her wolf rises, its growl low and soft, not out of threat but recognition. The kind of recognition that exists beyond the mind, in the bones, in the soul. She feels his energy reaching for hers, steady, patient, waiting for her to take the step she's been afraid of her entire life. She closes her eyes, letting the warmth of his nearness fill her chest. She can feel the rhythm of his heartbeat through his palm, the steady thrum that matches her own. For the first time, she doesn't feel cursed. She feels seen. The storm outside fades to a whisper, as if even the world has paused to watch. When she opens her eyes again, His hand is still in hers, his expression soft but certain. He doesn't push closer, doesn't demand more. He just waits. And in that waiting, she realizes what trust really means. It's not surrender. It's choice. It's the moment you stop running, not because you're cornered, but because someone made staying feel safe. She breathes his name for the first time, testing it on her tongue, soft as prayer. Oren. His eyes lift, surprised, and for a heartbeat, the quiet between them turns sacred. She doesn't say anything more. She doesn't need to. Outside, the moonlight deepens, pouring through the cracks until it touches their joined hands, turning the silver of her hair and the gold of his eyes into twin reflections of something the prophecy never warned about: hope. They sit like that for a long time, wordless, still. The kind of stillness that comes after the storm, when everything broken begins to breathe again. And though neither says it, both know the truth. The world is changing. And it began here, in this cave, where a cursed Omega and a silent Alpha learned what it meant to trust in the middle of ruin. The cave is quiet except for the slow rhythm of their breathing and the distant echo of rain whispering through the cracks above. Moonlight seeps through the jagged edges of the rock, painting silver shapes across the walls. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something raw, alive, electric. Her pulse hasn't steadied since the battle. Her skin still hums with the ghost of fire, the memory of his hand gripping hers through the chaos. Now there's only stillness. And him. He sits a few feet away, his back to the stone, his head bowed slightly as he works on binding the cut along his forearm. His movements are careful, practiced. Every gesture seems to mean something beyond survival, like each touch of the cloth, each pull of the knot, carries the weight of unspoken thoughts. When he looks up, his golden eyes catch the light. They always do, reflecting back the faint glow of the moon, fierce and calm all at once. He doesn't need words, he never has. She's beginning to understand that his silence isn't empty. It's full. Full of everything he chooses not to say because the world rarely deserves to hear it. She watches the way his jaw tightens when he moves, the wince he hides when the cloth brushes too close to the wound. He pretends not to notice her gaze, but his eyes flick toward her once, then again. He signs a short word, sit. She hesitates, unsure whether it's an order or an invitation. But something in his expression, gentle, patient, pulls her closer. She lowers herself beside him, the warmth of his body radiating through the chill. The cave feels smaller now, filled by the quiet tension between them. He reaches for her arm. She flinches instinctively. He freezes, hands suspended midair, waiting. Not forcing, just waiting. She exhales, slow and shaky, and nods. His touch is steady as he cleans the shallow cuts along her forearm, fingers tracing the burned edges of her skin. The contact sends a rush through her, an ache she can't name. He's close enough for her to feel the tremor in his breath, close enough that the faint scent of pine and steel clings to her senses. Her voice is barely a whisper. You shouldn't be doing this. If they find out you helped me, your council will call you traitor. He doesn't look up. His hands never falter. He finishes the bandage, ties it neatly, and then signs, let them call me what they want. His defiance cuts through her. Not because it's loud, but because it's quiet. Because he means it. Because every sign, every movement, carries truth. She doesn't understand him, this man who's supposed to be a prince, a soldier, a leader of wolves, but who chooses to be here instead, in a damp cave with a girl who carries death in her veins. He reaches into the small pouch tied to his belt and pulls out a pendant, a small crest carved from obsidian, the mark of the royal line. The chain glints faintly in the dim light. Without hesitation, he places it in her hand. Her fingers curl around the cold metal. What are you doing? His answer comes in slow, deliberate gestures. It means trust. The words cut deeper than any wound. She stares down at the pendant, at the symbol she once saw etched on banners raised above battlefields, carried by armies who hunted her kind. To have it now, placed in her hand by the Alpha's son himself, it feels impossible. Her throat tightens. You shouldn't trust me. He tilts his head, his eyes narrowing slightly. a question forming without words. She exhales, trembling. Because I'm not safe. Not for you. Not for anyone. He studies her for a long moment. Then, slow as the tide, he raises his hands again. Then I'll learn how to be safe with you. She looks away, because the honesty in his eyes is too much. It's too human. Too real. The silence stretches between them, and she fills it with confession, because the weight inside her can't stay buried anymore. There was a night, she says softly. The moon was crimson, the air so still I could hear my heartbeat echo. I thought that if I stopped breathing, maybe the world would stop hating me too. Her voice trembles. She doesn't look at him. I walked to the cliffs outside the pack's border. The wind was cold enough to feel like punishment. I thought if I jumped, it would end quietly. But my wolf wouldn't let me. She pulled back. She fought me. She howled until the world woke. Her hands shake. I hated her for it. I hated being saved. He doesn't move. He doesn't try to comfort her with touch or pity. He just listens. Truly listens. The kind of listening that doesn't demand, doesn't judge, just exists. Then, when the silence becomes too heavy to bear, he reaches out. Slowly. Gently. He takes her hand in his and presses her fingers to his heartbeat. The steady rhythm fills the space between them, grounding her. He signs with his free hand, "You're still here." That's what matters. Tears burn at the back of her eyes. "You don't even know me." He signs again, "I don't need to." The simplicity of it disarms her completely. She feels the walls she built, stone by stone, over years of rejection and pain, beginning to crack. His hand stays in hers, warm and solid. Her wolf hums beneath her skin, restless, sensing the bond forming faster than her mind can process. When she looks up, his gaze meets hers, and the space between them feels charged. Like the air before lightning strikes. Her heartbeat quickens. She can see every detail of him now, the faint scar running along his jaw, the burn mark on his collarbone, the small notch missing from his ear. He's been through wars, both outside and within. And yet, there's gentleness in him, the kind that shouldn't exist in a world built on dominance and power. He leans closer, just enough that she feels his breath brush against her cheek. His eyes search hers, not demanding, not asking, just waiting. Her pulse stumbles. She whispers, "I can't." For a moment, silence stretches so thin it hurts. Then his mouth curves, just barely, into a smile that feels like sunrise after endless night. He signs, slow enough for her to read every motion. "You already did." Something inside her unravels completely. The cave feels smaller now, the air heavier, the pull between them impossible to ignore. Her wolf rises, its growl low and soft, not out of threat but recognition. The kind of recognition that exists beyond the mind, in the bones, in the soul. She feels his energy reaching for hers, steady, patient, waiting for her to take the step she's been afraid of her entire life. She closes her eyes, letting the warmth of his nearness fill her chest. She can feel the rhythm of his heartbeat through his palm, the steady thrum that matches her own. For the first time, she doesn't feel cursed. She feels seen. The storm outside fades to a whisper as if even the world has paused to watch. When she opens her eyes again, his hand is still in hers, his expression soft but certain. He doesn't push closer, doesn't demand more. He just waits. And in that waiting, she realizes what trust really means. It's not surrender. It's choice. It's the moment you stop running, not because you're cornered, but because someone made staying feel safe. She breathes his name for the first time, testing it on her tongue, soft as prayer. Oren. His eyes lift, surprised, and for a heartbeat, the quiet between them turns sacred. She doesn't say anything more. She doesn't need to. Outside, the moonlight deepens, pouring through the cracks until it touches their joined hands, turning the silver of her hair and the gold of his eyes into twin reflections of something the prophecy never warned about: hope. They sit like that for a long time, wordless, still. The kind of stillness that comes after the storm, when everything broken begins to breathe again. And though neither says it, both know the truth. The world is changing. And it began here, in this cave, where a cursed Omega and a silent Alpha learned what it meant to trust in the middle of ruin. The cave breathes around them, stone and silence wrapped together like a heartbeat. The fire she lit at the entrance has burned down to its last ember, but neither of them moves to feed it. The faint orange glow flickers over their faces, casting shadows that move like ghosts on the wall. Outside, the storm hums quietly, no longer wild, just weary. He sits beside her, closer than before. The warmth of his presence fills the air between them, steadying, grounding. She feels it in the way her lungs finally begin to expand again, how her hands stop shaking. For the first time since the night began, she isn't thinking about running. He unwraps a strip of cloth from his wrist and dips it into a shallow pool near the wall. The sound of dripping water echoes softly. He returns, cleaning the last trace of blood from her neck. His touch is precise, deliberate, as though he's afraid too much pressure might shatter her. When he finishes, he doesn't pull away immediately. His hand lingers near her jaw, fingers hovering just above her skin. Her breath catches. His gaze flickers upward, meeting hers. It's not lust that fills the air. It's recognition. A slow, aching awareness that neither of them expected and both of them fear. He lowers his hand and signs slowly, deliberately. You should sleep. Her lips curve faintly. Sleep. Her voice cracks from exhaustion. After everything? He doesn't answer, only looks at her with that same quiet intensity, the kind that makes silence louder than words. He signs again. You're safe here. She wants to believe it. She wants to believe in something other than running, hiding, burning. But safety has never existed in her world. Safety was always the pause before betrayal. Still, when she lies back against the cave wall, she doesn't flinch when he sits near her feet, facing the entrance like a sentinel. Her eyes drift closed. She listens to the rhythm of his breathing, the steady beat of rain against stone, the distant roll of thunder retreating into memory. Hours pass before sleep finally comes. When she wakes, the fire has died, and the cave is pale with dawn. The light finds him first, Oren, sitting where he always does, back straight, eyes half closed, as if he hasn't moved at all. But his hand rests near hers on the ground, close enough that their fingers almost touch. She studies him quietly. The scars, the strength, the silence that somehow feels louder than any alpha's roar. She wonders what kind of life breeds a man who can fight like a beast and still touch like he's afraid to break something sacred. When he senses her awake, he looks over. His expression softens. He signs, morning. Her throat tightens. You didn't sleep. He shakes his head, signing, didn't need to. A small smile pulls at her lips. You're lying. He raises an eyebrow. She can almost hear the laugh that never comes. For a while, neither speaks. The morning feels fragile, balanced on the edge of something new. But then the quiet shifts. She feels the weight of everything unsaid pressing against her chest. She sits up, drawing her knees close. You could still turn me in, she says quietly. You'd be a hero. The council would forgive everything. He studies her for a long moment, eyes tracing her face like he's memorizing it. Then his hands move. Do you want me to? Her heart stutters. No, she admits. Then stop waiting for me to betray you. The words hit harder than she expects. She swallows, looking down at the pendant still in her hand, the royal crest, his trust carved into stone. She closes her fingers around it until it presses against her skin. Her voice trembles. I don't know how. He shifts closer, the sound of his movement soft against the cave floor. He doesn't touch her this time, doesn't have to. The space between them hums with something alive. He signs, then I'll wait. She looks at him, searching for a reason to doubt, but there isn't one. His eyes don't waver. They hold her like truth itself. And suddenly she's the one who can't look away. Her thoughts scatter, colliding with memories, her father's eyes when the pack branded her, the pain of losing her wolf's voice, the endless nights she prayed for death. She wants to tell him all of it. She wants him to know why she built these walls, why she still can't stop flinching when someone gets too close. Instead, what leaves her lips is quieter. Why me? He blinks, confused. She swallows. You could have saved anyone that night. Why me? His hands move slowly, deliberately. Because you didn't ask to be saved. She stares at him. The words cut clean through her chest. He continues, his gestures fluid but trembling slightly now. You didn't beg. You didn't break. You looked at them like they had no power left to hurt you. And I knew. Her breath shatters. Knew what? He signs, that I couldn't let them take you. There's no defense against honesty like that. It reaches into the deepest part of her, the part that still remembers being called cursed, unwanted, wrong. And somehow, in his silence, in his unflinching calm, he's undoing all of it. The air thickens. Her wolf stirs restlessly, pressing against the walls of her chest, responding to something ancient and instinctive. She looks away, but his presence follows, soft and patient. He signs, You're afraid. Yes. Of me? She shakes her head. Of feeling something again. He hesitates, then reaches out. His fingers brush against her cheek, slow, tentative, as if giving her time to pull away. She doesn't. The touch sends warmth spiraling through her veins, chasing away the cold that's lived there too long. His gaze drifts to her lips, then back to her eyes. The silence between them deepens until it feels alive. She whispers, I can't. His expression softens, and he signs the words that once broke her and save her again. You already did. The air leaves her lungs. She closes her eyes, and for a moment, the world stops spinning. When she opens them again, he's still there, still close, still waiting. Her hand rises on its own, trembling as it traces the scar along his jaw. His breath hitches, the smallest break in his perfect stillness. And in that fragile crack, she sees the truth he's as lost as she is. They don't speak. They don't need to. The light shifts, slipping across their faces like a blessing. Somewhere outside, the first bird calls, a fragile sound that feels like hope. When she finally pulls her hand away, her chest feels lighter. The weight of years of exile and fear begins to fade. He signs once more, trust me. She meets his gaze, steady this time. Then don't give me a reason not to. He smiles, small, fleeting, but real, and nods. The storm has ended. But the world outside hasn't changed. The council will hunt them. The packs will brand her fire as evil. Yet, for the first time, she doesn't care. Because here, in the quiet of the mountain, she's found something the prophecy never promised, peace in the presence of another broken soul. And for now, that's enough. The sky above the ruins burns red, a mirror to the fury and glory erupting from her very being. Every stone underfoot quivers, every ember drifting from the ash carries a warning. The market that once held her in chains lies shattered, a testament to power long denied, to fury finally unleashed. She stands amid it all, her silver hair dancing in the heat of her own flames, her eyes blazing with the force of centuries of suppression. She is no longer the girl who trembled under torches and jeers. She is the fire-born queen, and the world will remember her. Smoke curls around her like a living cloak. Shadows twist in the firelight, some fleeing, some kneeling, all caught between awe and terror. Her wolf rumbles low in her chest, fierce and untamed, finally unbound. Each step she takes sends tremors through the ground, as if the earth itself recognizes her claim. The flames lick higher, not destructive for the sake of destruction, but sacred, purifying, revealing the truth she has carried in her blood all this time. Through the haze, he appears, Orin, the mute prince whose silence once whispered more than words ever could. He moves with careful precision, scars glinting faintly in the silver firelight, the weight of every battle he has fought evident in each measured step. He stops just beyond the edge of her brilliance, yet the distance between them feels insignificant, a mere shadow against the bond that pulses visibly between them. He lifts a hand, slow, deliberate, each movement carrying centuries of unspoken meaning. You were never my curse, he signs, his golden eyes never leaving hers. The gesture is simple, yet it shakes the foundations of her soul. The fire around her flickers, as if acknowledging a truth she herself has been too afraid to claim. She steps toward him, and the heat of her power radiates in waves that curl around his form. Then what am I? Her voice trembles, not with fear, but with the weight of realization of authority long denied. His hand rises, trembling slightly as he places it over his chest. Her palm touches the warmth of his heart, and in that contact, the world shifts. The goddess's mark ignites between them, brilliant and unrelenting, silver and gold intertwined, weaving their essence into one. Light explodes outward, cascading over the ruins like a tide of stars. The smoke rises, refracted in flames and brilliance, yet the fire does not consume, it honors. His voice cracks, trembling yet strong, piercing the cacophony of crackling fire and falling stone. You are the sound I was waiting for. Every soul present, wolves, exiles, councilmen, hunters, stops. Time seems to falter under the weight of those words. The prophecy, long whispered in fearful tones, now manifests in blazing clarity. She is the power, the balance, the reckoning. Her flames do not falter, and the earth itself bows beneath her assertion. Wolves kneel, heads lowered, breaths caught, some trembling in awe, others in fear, all unable to deny her rightful claim. Her wolf stirs beneath her ribs, no longer a secret, no longer constrained. It rises, coiling through her veins, a living force amplifying her presence. The fire surges higher, reflecting in her eyes, and she steps forward, every movement claiming the power that was always hers. He reaches for her again, fingers entwining with hers. His body is strong, scarred, resilient, yet it's his silent reverence that strikes her most. Every gesture, every tremor of his hand, speaks volumes. He leans close, and for the first time, he speaks words without hesitation, without restraint, trembling not from fear but from the gravity of truth. You are the sound I was waiting for. Her breath catches at the weight of it. The words echo, reverberating through her bones. She feels every moment of rejection, every cruel hand, every whispered curse, dissolving in the heat of his voice and the fire she commands. She moves closer to him, silver flames licking across her arms, her chest heaving with the rhythm of untamed power. The bond pulses through them, a tangible current that connects heart to heart, soul to soul. The mark burns brighter with every second, a sigil of unity, strength, and destiny fulfilled. The crowd remains frozen. Eyes widen in disbelief. Some lower in worship, others in terror, but none can deny what stands before them. She is no longer fragile. She is no longer rejected. She is a force of nature, a queen born of fire and survival, of rejection turned into reckoning. He signs slowly, reverently, words that carry the weight of his devotion. I am yours. The simplicity of the gesture, the quiet authority in it, makes her chest ache in a way she cannot name. Her power, once a curse, now feels like a crown forged in silver flames. She leans closer, brushing a hand along his jaw, feeling warmth, life, and steadfastness in the solid pulse beneath her fingers. The moment stretches, infinite and unbroken, as the fire around her bends, swirls, and dances to the silent rhythm of their unity. Then the horizon trembles. Not softly, not subtly. The ground beyond the ruins rumbles with a low, insistent growl, the air thickening as if the sky itself holds its breath. The power that has slept for centuries begins to awaken. Shadows ripple over distant hills, and even her flames falter slightly, sensing a challenge beyond comprehension. She exhales, the breath a mixture of exhilaration and apprehension. Something else, feels it, she murmurs, voice carried on the crackle of embers. Oren's fingers tighten around hers. He signs carefully, deliberately, then we face it together. The words, though silent, resonate louder than any roar. She nods, the fire in her veins answering with renewed vigor. Her wolf, coiled and quivering moments ago, leaps fully awake now, howling in harmony with the trembling earth. Silver flames flare brighter, cascading upward, reflecting in his golden eyes. Together, they are more than two, they are a storm, a force the world cannot ignore. Smoke and ash swirl around them as she steps forward, testing the limits of her newfound power. The ground cracks beneath her feet, sparks leaping from fissures. Wolves emerge from the surrounding shadows, kneeling in awe, sensing the undeniable authority radiating from her core. Even the few remaining councilmen, hardened by centuries of hierarchy and control, falter at her presence. Their voices, once commanding, are swallowed by the tremors that now echo across the valley. Her gaze meets Oren's. No words are necessary. Every heartbeat, every flicker of silver fire, every unspoken sign conveys the depth of their bond. He steps closer, and together, they form a circle of light so brilliant, so alive, that the ruins themselves seem to pulse in acknowledgement. And then she raises her hand. A single motion. Not for vengeance. Not for power. But for sovereignty. The flames respond instantly, arcs of silver fire stretching into the sky, illuminating the battlefield, the ruins, the trembling horizon. The mark between them flares, connecting them in a halo of destiny. Every nerve in her body hums with potential, every wolf growl vibrates with life. The horizon shifts again. A distant rumble, low and measured, betrays a power older than the council, older than the ruins, older than the prophecy itself. Something awakens, aware of her claim, aware of the presence of the fire-born queen and her silent alpha beside her. The world beyond her vision is no longer still. It watches, waits, and reacts. She exhales, chest rising and falling in unison with Oren's steady pulse beneath her hand. "I am not your sacrifice," she declares, voice carrying over ash and ember, over smoke and ruin, over the tremors and whispers of fear and awe. "I am the beginning." The fire around her arcs higher, reacting to the power in her words, to the claim she makes with every fiber of her being. Oren's eyes reflect the flames, golden pools catching silver sparks, as if the bond they share has become a physical presence in the air. His hands rise, moving to sign what words cannot capture, "And I stand with you." The prophecy is fulfilled. Not in whispers, not in fear, but in the blazing certainty of her power, in the unity of their bond. Wolves kneel, the earth shudders, and the horizon waits, trembling with the promise of challenges yet to come. She steps forward, the crown of her flames marking her as both savior and reckoning. Every muscle in her body hums with life and purpose. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of ash, rain, and something ancient awakening. She feels it, senses it, the stirrings of a force beyond comprehension, ready to test the limits of what she has claimed. Her gaze meets Oren's once more. He nods, his fingers brushing hers, grounding them both. She is fireborn. She is queen. And together, they are unstoppable. And somewhere beyond the trembling horizon, a new presence rises. Something older than the prophecy. Something that knows her name. Something that will challenge everything she has become. Yet, in this moment, among the ruins, among the kneeling wolves, among the fire and the ash, she is absolute. She is not their sacrifice. She is their reckoning. She is everything. The ruins breathe smoke and shadow as the last embers of fire sputter against the night. She stands at the center, silver flames still licking at her arms, her chest heaving with exhaustion, triumph, and the raw ache of everything she's endured. Around her, wolves stir, some kneeling, some watching with cautious awe, as if unsure whether to revere or fear what stands before them. Every stone beneath her feet feels like it remembers her suffering. Every ash-dusted shard whispers of battles survived and blood spilled. Her wolf stirs beneath her skin, stretching, trembling, flickering in and out of form. Majestic, wild, unstoppable. She feels the pull of her own power, magnificent and terrifying, and wonders if she can ever fully contain it. Victory tastes sweet, but a bitter tang of uncertainty cuts through her triumph. Even now, the echoes of the council's fear, the whispers of prophecy, linger like shadows at the edge of her consciousness. She turns to Oren, her silent protector, her steadfast anchor. He stands there, body still, face illuminated by the silver glow of her fire, but his eyes carry the weight of all he has seen, all he has kept silent. He can speak now, yet the words he chooses are measured, deliberate, almost sacred. He steps closer, and she feels the heat of his presence blending with her own, the unspoken bond between them thrumming like a heartbeat in the night. Her voice trembles, breaking as she confesses aloud what has haunted her since the markets, since her exile. Will they ever accept me? The words are barely more than a whisper, fragile against the ruin and the wind, yet they carry every ounce of fear, hope, and longing she's buried inside for years. He steps closer, unwavering, eyes locking with hers. The golden light of his gaze meets the silver inferno burning from her hands. He speaks now, aloud, voice deep, steady, but soft enough to hold reverence. They will have to. She exhales, and the wind carries her breath across the ashes. Her eyes flare brighter, silver fire swirling, wolf form shimmering around her like a living halo. Every muscle, every fiber of her being pulses with energy, raw and untamed. She feels the pulse of the earth beneath her, the tremor of destiny converging with her own heartbeat. It is intoxicating and terrifying all at once. The ruined marketplace, the collapsed pillars, the scorched banners, they are no longer just ruins. They are a stage, a testament to her power and survival, a witness to a girl who became a queen in fire and blood. Every shadow seems alive, flickering in rhythm with the sparks that rise from her fingertips, every sound amplified, the distant howl of a wolf, the whisper of wind through charred stones, the quiet crackle of flames fading. Oren moves closer, silent as always, until he stands just at the edge of her light. His hand brushes against hers, a touch as electric as the fire that coils through her veins. He does not try to restrain her, does not command, does not judge. His presence alone steadies her, calms the storm that churns within, yet the question in her heart remains, will the world see her as savior, or as the threat they've always feared? Her wolf stirs, flickering, shimmering between corporeal form and ethereal silver fire, majestic and wild. It raises its head, howling silently at the moon that peers through ragged clouds above. The howl carries her doubts, her fears, her triumphs, her pain, twisting and echoing through the ruins like a declaration to the world. She is here. She is powerful. She is unbroken. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of ash and rain, of smoke and life, and she feels eyes upon her. Not just Oren's. Not just the kneeling wolves. The whispers of the world beyond, the council, rival packs, every skeptic who has ever doubted her, hang on the edge of silence, watching, waiting. And she knows the truth. Every choice, every act of courage, every flicker of silver fire has brought her here, to this moment where she is unstoppable, yet still vulnerable to the judgment of those who cannot yet see her fully. Her gaze returns to Oren, whose golden eyes reflect both firelight and understanding. He signs slowly, deliberately, "You are more than they know." Her chest tightens. "Am I ready?" she whispers, almost to herself, almost to him. Her voice carries through the ruins, fragile against the echoing remnants of battle. He steps forward, closing the distance between them, and takes her hand in both of his. The touch is grounding, fierce, tender. He signs again. "You are already what they will fear and love." Her silver flames pulse brighter, a response not only to his words, but to the truth she has carried inside since exile, since rejection. Every beat of her heart resonates through her wolf, through the ruins, through the very air around them. She is both terror and hope, destruction and salvation, and the world is about to witness it. The horizon shifts. Shadows gather at the edge of the city, movement stirring beyond the reach of her fire. A distant growl rumbles through the air, deep and ancient, carrying a warning she cannot yet interpret. She feels the pull of another power awakening, a force older, darker, perhaps more dangerous than anything she has faced. The earth trembles beneath her feet, and for the first time, she senses that the battle is far from over. Her wolf flickers between forms, towering, majestic, impossible. She raises her head, letting the howl rip through the night, through the smoke, through every heart that listens. It is a call, a declaration, a warning. She is fireborn. She is queen. She is unstoppable. Oren's hand tightens around hers, golden eyes locking with her silver blaze. He signs again. We face it together. She nods, silver fire spiraling higher, her wolf form shimmering between mortal and divine. Every ounce of fear, every memory of rejection, every scar from battle fuels her resolve. She is not the girl who trembled in the Roman market. She is not the Omega they tried to break. She is the reckoning they cannot contain. The air vibrates with tension, electric and alive, as if the world itself waits on her next move. She steps forward, raising her arms, flames extending outward, silver and bright against the darkening ruins. Every motion asserts authority, power, and defiance. The fire is hers, the wolf is hers, the destiny is hers. And then she speaks, voice carrying, breaking through the whispers of doubt that cling to the night. Would you have chosen me, or feared me too? The ruins fall silent. The wind stills. The kneeling wolves lift their heads, eyes wide, breaths held. Every shadow, every ember, every flicker of light seems to hold its breath, waiting for an answer. She looks past the ruins, past the trembling horizon, past the distant threats she cannot yet see. Is she a savior, or the flame that will burn the world anew? Her wolf roars in response, silver fire flickering along its fur, eyes bright with intelligence, with challenge, with life. It steps alongside her, twin of her soul, twin of her destiny. She turns to Oren. His hands lift, golden eyes unwavering. He signs slowly, reverently, always with you. Her chest tightens. The fire in her veins roars louder, as though the world itself has heard the answer. She feels it, the bond, the power, the inevitability. The story is not over. Not yet. Not ever. The ruins glow faintly as the last embers fade. Her wolf flickers, silver and majestic, a force that cannot be denied. The horizon trembles with the stirrings of power, promise, and danger. Every shadow knows she is coming. Every wind whispers her name. And for anyone watching, anyone listening, anyone who feels the pull of fire and fate, the choice is theirs. Will they stand with her or tremble in fear? Will they embrace love and defiance or bow before prophecy unfulfilled? If this story burns something inside you, subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections, where love is defiance and destiny is written in fire. Where every whisper of heartache, every flicker of power, and every unspoken bond finds its voice. Where the rejected rise, the broken heal, and the fireborn claim what was always theirs. The night stretches on. The ruins breathe. And she remains a queen, a wolf, a flame. The first light of dawn creeps over the horizon, painting the ruined kingdom in hues of gold and blood red, as though the world itself has been scorched and reborn. Ash drifts like spectral snow, settling on shattered stones, twisted iron, and the remnants of what was once the marketplace, a stage of cruelty, fear, and injustice now silent except for the crackle of dying embers and the distant calls of wary wolves. Her silver flames have dimmed, leaving her skin glimmering with residual sparks, her hair tangled and damp from the storm and sweat of survival. She stands at the center of the ruins, chest heaving, heart racing, yet still untouched by fatigue, the adrenaline of victory and the pull of destiny keeping her on the edge between mortal and myth. Beside her, Oren kneels briefly, hands brushing the ashes from his cloak. Golden eyes meet hers, and in that gaze, 1,000 unspoken words pass between them, gratitude, fear, desire, and the raw, unshakable recognition of what they have just survived together. His body is scarred, trembling from exertion, yet unwavering, anchored not just in loyalty, but in a connection that neither fire nor prophecy could destroy. Every motion he makes is careful, deliberate, yet charged with a quiet intensity that matches the power she feels thrumming in her veins. Her wolf stirs, flickering between forms, silver and immense, every sinew coiled like a living current of power. The howl that escapes her throat is both warning and proclamation, echoing across the broken kingdom, claiming it not as a battleground, but as a home for her reign, for her people, for the inevitable reckoning that will follow. Yet even as she raises her head to the sky, her golden eyes catching the first rays of the sun. Unease coils in her chest. There is another. Something beyond the horizon, beyond the ash, beyond the ruins, a presence palpable and undeniable. From the edge of the charred tree-line, a figure emerges. Tall, imposing, yet impossibly graceful, each step measured, deliberate, silent, but loaded with intent. His eyes catch the light in a way that makes the air itself shiver, crimson fire blazing where gold should have been, a mirror of her own power but twisted, ancient, and dangerous. He moves like a shadow of fate, drawn by the same prophecy, the same bloodline, yet carrying a threat that sets her silver fire surging instinctively through every vein, every nerve. She is not the only one, he growls, voice low, vibrating through the ashes and shaking the earth beneath their feet. The words are simple, but the implication is heavy, inevitable, inescapable. Her pulse quickens, her wolf's hackles rise, and the air tastes electric, charged with confrontation and anticipation. She steps forward, silver flames flickering higher, a coil of light and energy that hums in rhythm with her heartbeat, ready to meet whatever challenge waits in that crimson gaze. Oren rises beside her, silent but unwavering, his hands brushing hers as if to anchor them both to this fragile moment before the storm of destiny swells once more. His golden eyes narrow, alert, reflecting not fear but a fierce, protective resolve. Even now, after every trial, after the claim of prophecy and the eruption of silver flame, he is her anchor, her balance, and yet the unknown force approaching makes every instinct scream. The ground trembles again, subtle at first, then with growing insistence, as though the earth itself anticipates the clash to come. She shifts slightly, wolf form blending seamlessly with human, silver fur bristling along her spine. The flames lick her arms, coiling around her like serpents of light, warning, daring, proclaiming her presence. Every breath she takes carries the scent of fire, ash, blood, and the unshakable knowledge that the world will never be the same again. Yet within her, uncertainty gnaws. The prophecy spoke of a fireborn, a singular power to bring salvation or ruin. But now, standing at the edge of light and shadow, she senses the prophecy was never complete. There is another, equally marked, equally potent. And she must face him. The figure moves closer, silent as a predator, yet not without purpose. Crimson eyes scan her from top to toe, assessing, weighing, measuring the fire that dances in her veins. He stops a mere stone's throw away, and in that pause, tension coils like a spring ready to snap. The silence stretches, thick and suffocating, broken only by the faint crackle of dying embers and the distant murmur of wolves in the forest. He extends a hand, not in friendship, not in surrender, but in recognition. A silent claim. A challenge. Her chest tightens. Her wolf growls low, rumbling through her body, a sound of warning and excitement intertwined. She does not flinch, does not step back. The flames around her respond to her emotion, surging higher, reflecting her anticipation, her fear, her readiness. The prophecy is no longer a whisper in the wind, it is alive, embodied in her, in Oren, in the one who approaches. The air vibrates with energy, electric, oppressive, and intoxicating. Oren shifts to her side, hands brushing hers briefly. His presence steadies her, yet even he seems aware of the power gathering, of the storm coiling beyond the horizon. He signs slowly, deliberately, eyes locked on her. Stay with me. Face it with me. She nods, letting the weight of his trust anchor her, even as adrenaline surges through her veins. Her wolf form flares larger, silver flames spiraling around her, illuminating the ruin in stark contrast to the dark figure approaching. The crimson fire of the newcomer seems to respond, flaring in tandem, a mirror and a threat, a promise and a warning. You are fireborn, he says, voice deep and resonant, echoing across the broken stones. But you are not alone. The words are almost reverent, yet the threat underlying them is unmistakable. His flames pulse, each movement deliberate, controlled, yet radiating an intensity that forces the air itself to quiver. She tightens her fists, silver fire coiling higher, matching him, challenging him. The tension is suffocating, tangible, almost tactile in its intensity. Oren moves closer, hand brushing hers again, grounding her. "We face this together," he signs, eyes fierce, unwavering. Her pulse races. The wolves behind her shift, sensing the rising danger, their growls low, protective. Yet she does not hesitate. She steps forward, silver flames blazing like a crown of defiance around her head, every nerve coiled, every muscle ready. This is not the moment to falter. The fire inside her is alive, conscious, an extension of her will and her heart. She will not be passive. She will not be broken again. The crimson figure tilts his head, assessing, reading her, and she feels the pull of his power, a force both alien and familiar, a reflection of what she might have been, or what she could become. Every instinct screams at her to strike, to test, to claim dominance, yet she holds, breathing deep, letting the rhythm of her wolf guide her. The prophecy is not just a path, it is a challenge. And the challenge now stands before her, alive, breathing, waiting. She lifts her chin, silver flames licking higher, eyes locking on the crimson blaze that mirrors her own. The air hums with potential, with threat, with promise. Every heartbeat in her chest pounds like a drum of war, every flicker of fire a declaration. She is here, she is power, and she is not alone, but she will not yield. Oren's hand tightens around hers, the connection solid, grounding, yet electrifying. He leans slightly, whispering words only she can hear, voice trembling yet strong. "No matter what comes, we stand as one." She exhales, letting the fire swirl around her in response. The wolves grow louder, their howls echoing the tension, the anticipation, the charge of destiny gathering in the ruins. She feels her wolf surge within her, coiling, ready, powerful, magnificent. She feels the crimson figure's presence, not as an enemy yet, but as a force she must reckon with, as a shadow that mirrors her own flame. The ground trembles again, faintly at first, then insistently, as though the world itself waits for the next move. The wind carries ash and smoke in eddies around them, every particle a silent witness to the beginning of what is coming. She knows, deep in her bones, that this is only the start. The prophecy has not ended. The Fireborn's power has awakened, but another force waits, patient, deliberate, crimson, and alive. She steps forward, silver flames dancing across her arms, every flicker an assertion of sovereignty, strength, and defiance. Her wolf form flickers majestically, a living embodiment of power and instinct, coiled around her, ready to defend, to fight, to claim. And as the crimson figure moves closer, the horizon trembles, the ruins shiver, and the earth itself seems to hold its breath. The story is not over. Not by a long shot. Somewhere beyond the smoke, the shadows, and the flames, the prophecy waits, patient and ancient. And she, the Fireborn Queen, and Oren, the golden-eyed prince, stand ready, not just to face it, but to define it. The first breath of the new dawn cuts across the ruined kingdom, ash swirling like snow, fire reflecting in silver eyes, crimson fire answering from the distance. The world has shifted. The story has only begun. The ground trembles beneath her feet once more, deeper this time, resonant, powerful. The air hums, thick with potential, with threat, with promise. She senses the pull, the awakening of forces older than the ruins themselves, eyes burning crimson in the distance. They watch. They wait. They know her name. And she knows, without a doubt, that the story is far from over. The Fireborn rises, wolf and queen entwined in silver flame, eyes glowing, heart pounding, ready for everything that is coming. And the horizon shifts, whispering, alive and waiting.